Hello everyone, we are back in the Axiom, and today we are going to hook up the logic for the main quest in this toy box. Now there are three main stages to the main quest. In the first stage, the player needs to take Eve from the hangar all the way out to the bridge, which is in the resort area of the Axiom. And they need to talk to Otto, the automatic pilot. And since we can't actually go up to the bridge, I've put a little pedestal over here for Otto. This is the same pedestal we used in the escape pod chamber. And so they're going to come talk to Otto, and as you saw in the playthrough video, of course, he will take Eve and the plant and then turn his robots on you to get rid of you. Once the player defeats the robots, the second stage begins. And in the second stage, the player needs to travel back to this end of the ship and rescue Eve from the repair ward and rescue the plant from getting ejected out into space in the escape pod. And then in stage 3, the player has to make their way back to the resort area of the ship. And there are a number of battles along the way. There's a battle here at the bottom of the escalator. There's another one here at the top of the escalator. And then there's a big battle here in the resort area. And there's 2 enemy wave generators associated with that. So that's what we need to do. That's the flow of the main quest. And that's the logic we're going to hook up today. And before we begin, I want you to know that I have created some logic diagrams to go with the video today. And I have posted them on my blog. You can find a link to those diagrams in the video description. And you may find it helpful to follow along on the diagrams as we go. Okay. Let's start by reviewing the creativitoys that we will need. And to save time, I've already placed them in the toy box. And I've already done some preliminary work to save time as well, like connecting some of the toys to locators and setting properties and that kind of thing. So let me show you everything I've done so far. And these things are very easy, and you don't really need to watch me do them. I think it's sufficient to see the end result. And if you do have trouble following along with these basic preliminary steps and seeing exactly what I did, then I would encourage you to watch the tutorials for these individual creativitoys on my Toy Box Tutorials series, and those should help you out. Okay, so in this corner of the resort area, I have placed a enemy wave generator, and I've connected it to the locators that you see there. We have a dynamic trigger, which I've connected to that locator. We have a text displayer, another dynamic trigger connected to that same locator, a radar marker connected to that locator, and a radar marker connected to that locator. And we have a kiln sidekick door, and this is out of the gameplay toys. Okay? And then, of course, I've placed some toys here. And these will be the toys that we need for stage 1. Okay? And just to review these before we move on, I have configured the wave for this enemy wave generator to use 5 of those collection units from Stitch's Tropical Rescue. And we've set the properties like this, basically taking the generation delay to 0. Okay, let's start with this radar marker here. This is going to be for Otto. We're going to move that locator in a moment, but I wanted you to see what it's connected to. So we did that with a new locator connection. And then I set the properties like you see here. And Otto is kind of not really a mission giver, but he sort of is. So we've connected up a dynamic trigger to that same locator. And we've set the properties like you see there. And then we've put a text displayer in here with its properties configured like that. Now, the player is going to do talk to Auto and then walk away for a moment and come back. So when they come back, I needed a second dynamic trigger for that locator. And so its properties are set the same as the other one. And then we needed a locator for the kiln door. So it's connected to that locator, or a radar marker for that door. It's connected to that locator, and these are the properties for that. And for the sidekick door, its properties are set up like you see here. Okay, so at this point we can move the locator then underneath that little pedestal, so the radar marker is directly on top of it. And we can move this locator right in front of the sidekick door. And again, this is connected to those locators there. Okay. For the final battle, this will be for stage 3. We have another enemy wave generator set up back here, connected to 5 locators here in front of the tower. And this enemy wave generator is configured with 5 of those collection units from Stitch's Tropical Rescue. Properties set up the same as the other one. Take the generation delay to 0, leave the rest set the way they are. And for the final battle, we have another enemy wave generator down here, connected to 2 locators over there. This is configured with 2 tank Omni droids from the Incredibles playset. Properties are set the same way. Oops, I forgot to take that to 0. Okay, you can see how those are placed. And then we also have a button casing. If you don't have a button, you can use a regular button and a logic gate. You'll want the logic gate to be closed, in the closed state. So your level starter will close the logic gate. The button press would pass through the logic gate, or try to, and then on output from the logic gate, you would do everything that this button here is going to do. Okay? And when we connect up the logic later to activate this button, that would basically open the logic gate. So if you don't have the button casing, just use a button and a logic gate. And then we have an action enforcer and a sound effect generator. This is from Gameplay Toys. And be sure to take the 3D sound at speaker or locator property and turn that off. Right, so that's all the toys that we have in the resort area. In the gallery, we have a a trigger area set up on this seam between the 2 racetrack pieces, stretched all the way across. And we've got some locators set up out here, like you see there. The little blue dot on them is all of them are pointing towards the escalator. I've stretched a trigger area across the opening to the escalator. And I've connected a enemy wave generator to all of those 5 locators down there. And this is configured with 2 of those collection units and 3 of those. Properties, once again, take generation delay to 0. At the bottom of the escalator, we have 5 locators spread out like you see here, connected to this enemy wave generator, and I connected the ones nearest the walls and the one in the middle first, then did the other 2. And the reason I did that is because when I configured this, we have 3 of these first, so they're going to go at the first 3 locators you connect to, and then 2 of those. Properties, once again, set the same way. And we have a logic and. And then over here at the repair ward, we have some locators set up like you see down there. This enemy wave generator is connected to those locators. And this is configured with 3 of those collection units. Properties, again, set the same way. The other locator in the middle there is connected to this friendly wave generator. And this is configured with the Eve costume. Properties are set up like you see here. Take generation delay to 0. Set the behavior to stand still. And then you're going to connect this radar marker up with a new actor connection to your friendly wave generator as the actor. Set the properties like you see here. And we have a dynamic trigger, which you're also going to connect to the friendly wave generator as an actor. And you'll set the properties on this that way. All right, and we're almost done. We've got 2 locators set up down there, connected to this enemy wave generator. That will spawn 2 of those collection units. Properties, again, set the same way. And then I placed a shamrock collectible here on top of this control panel. And if you can't place this here because you get the red bounding box, just change the theme on this customizable plant down here to be something really short, and then you can drop this where you need to, and then retheme the plant back to a console. And then we have another locator set up here that I've connected to this radar marker, and its properties are set that way. And once you have that, then you can select your locator, drop this down on the floor down here, and that will put the radar marker right over top of the shamrock. All right, so those are all of the toys that I have placed and how I've configured them. And that may seem like a lot. It takes a little time to set it up, but it's not difficult. It's just kind of tedious work. And now what we're going to do is connect all of these things. And the thing I want to start with first is here in the hangar bay. There's one thing we didn't do last time. We put in the friendly wave generators to put Wall-E and Eve in here. But when we get to leaving this area, we want Wall-E to follow us. And the problem is because he's standing on a surface here that is connected to a path. The path AI, the following AI, doesn't know about this object, and so it thinks Wall-E is just kind of stuck there because he has nothing to walk on. It doesn't know about this surface. And so you'll tell Wall-E to follow you, but he's not actually going to go anywhere. He's just going to continue to stand there. And so in order to get him to follow you, you need to be standing on something more solid than this, something that the AI will recognize, which won't happen until you get to the elevator. And so what we're going to do is we're going to drop another trigger area right in front of the door to the elevator. So we're going to place this right here, just like that. Don't overlap the trigger area in the elevator because you don't need to. And then resize this so it's just in the door. Okay? Doesn't need to be very wide. And then you're going to take this trigger area for the elevator entrance, do a new logic connection when entered by player. Annie will come up to the friendly wave generator for Wall-E, and under the generated friend options, we'll have him follow. Now it's a short trigger area, so as the player walks through there, that'll trigger that. And then the player will be standing on the surface of the elevator, which is over top of 2 stationary terrain blocks. And the AI will be happy with that. And because it actually can't make Wall-E walk over there, it'll just teleport Wall-E to where you are. Okay? And so that will work out pretty good. And then from there on, he'll follow you wherever you go. Okay, so then once Wall-E is following you, and of course the idea is you're going to pick up Eve. She's got the radar marker over top of her. So you pick up Eve, walk into the elevator. Wall-E eventually follows you. You come up the elevator and out into the corridors, and away you go on your mission. And they're going to be heading toward the resort area. All right, so that gets things going. Now, let's see, what's the best way to do this? I guess the best thing to do next is just to head down to the resort area. We've got to come back and do a couple things back at the hangar, but most of the logic for stage 1 is going to be down here in this corner. So this radar marker is turned on by default. So the player will see that. That tells them where they need to bring Eve. And so what they're going to do is come and talk to Otto here, to that little pedestal. And there's some things that we've set up here that we really need to turn off until we're ready for them. And so let's go back to the level starter. And we'll go ahead and turn these things off and invoke the level starter so that we can have all that set. So on our level starter, which we put down last time, we'll do a new logic connection on catalyze. First thing I want to do is come up here, excuse me, and we're going to deactivate the sidekick door because we don't want the player throwing Eve in there until we're ready. So we'll deactivate that door. And then there were 2 dynamic triggers for auto. The first one we can leave on because that's going to go with the radar marker. We're waiting for the player to get over there. The other one we don't need until we're ready for it. So on our level starter, we'll do a new logic connection on catalyze. We'll come over to that second dynamic trigger and we'll turn that off. That will be this one right over here. Okay. All right, and we'll leave the other one on, which it is by default. Okay, the button casing, we don't need that until the very end. We don't want the player to push that till we're ready, because that would end the whole main quest. There'd be no point in doing the main quest. So we're going to come over to the level starter. We're going to do a new logic connection on catalyze. And we're going to deactivate that button casing. And again, if you are on PC or you do not have the Marvel Battlegrounds playset, you're not going to have the button casing. So just use a regular button and a logic gate. And what you'll do instead of deactivating the button casing here is you'll close the logic gate. Okay? All right, we're not going to need this trigger area till we're ready for it, so let's deactivate that. And again, this is just kind of set up for stage 1 here. Come over here to the trigger area and deactivate it. Same thing with the one at the elevator here, or the escalator. So we'll turn that one off as well. New logic connection on catalyze on the level starter. deactivate that trigger area. Okay. And, all right. Yeah, sorry. Okay, and then over here at the repair ward, we want to turn off that dynamic trigger till we're ready for it. So on the level starter, on catalyze, turn off that dynamic trigger. And we also want to hide the collectible until we're ready for it. So if the player decides to go exploring a little bit, we don't want them seeing and picking up that collectible too early. So on the level starter, new logic connection, on catalyze, come over to our shamrock collectible, and we'll hide it. Okay, and I think that's everything now that our level starter needs to do. And now that that's all hooked up, we'll come out of the editor here, press the button that we hooked up to our level starter, and now all of those things should be deactivated so we won't accidentally turn them on or pick them up or do whatever. And you can see here the collectible. If I can get in here to select it, there it is. You can see it's turned off. It's not visible. It's hidden. Okay, now back to the resort area. So the first thing the player is going to do is come talk to Otto. And we'll know when they've done that because this dynamic trigger, this first one for Otto, will be activated. The player will enter the radius that this sets up around that locator, and when it does, it'll trigger this, this dynamic trigger. And so on the dynamic trigger, we're going to do a new logic connection. When this is entered by player any, we'll turn off this radar marker because we don't need it now. And when this radar marker is turned off, we'll turn around and deactivate this first dynamic trigger here because we don't need to do this multiple times. On the dynamic trigger, new logic connection when entered by player any. We want to display some text, so we're going to come over to our text displayer. And under the defense category, we're going to say, deliver friends to the base for extra loot. Okay? So basically he's directing the player to toss Eve into the collection, the sidekick door there. So on the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player any. At this point, we will turn on the sidekick door and activate that. And on the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll turn on the radar marker here for the door. So that tells the player where they're delivering their friend to. Okay? So those are the four things that the first dynamic trigger here is going to do. Okay, now at this point, the player will toss Eve into the sidekick door. They can toss Wall-E in there first if they want. Then you won't have Wall-E following you around. But I don't care about Wall-E. I only care about Eve. And so what I've done here is on the properties, it's going to remove whatever townsperson we throw in there on entry. But I do not want to disable the door after use in case the player decides to toss Wall-E in there. I only care about if they toss Eve in there. So we're going to disable the door when we're done with it another way. Okay? The detection level has to be 0 in order for the player to be able to detect the door. Otherwise, if this is anything other than 0, it depends on a sidekick detecting the door. And we're not using sidekicks, so that's why this is 0. And we're only interested in the normal response, so that's set to 10. Explosive is set to 0. So that's why these are set the way they are. Okay? And so what's going to happen here is we're really only concerned about when they throw Eve in there. And we're only going to know that when the friendly wave generator for Eve, which is way back here at the hangar bay, when that wave is defeated. So the next part of the stage, stage 1, will be kicked off when Eve is defeated. So on this friendly wave generator for Eve, we'll do a new logic connection. When the wave is defeated and Eve has been tossed into that door, we're going to do a couple of things. First thing we want to do is turn off the radar marker for Eve, because we don't need that now. She's gone. Second thing, new logic connection when the wave is defeated, we're going to go turn off that sidekick door, because we don't need that anymore. And that'll prevent the player from tossing Wally or anything else into here. So this is how we'll deactivate the door. And we're going to want to turn off the radar marker as well for that door. So we'll come back over here and do that. So on the friendly wave generator for Eve, new logic connection when the wave is defeated. Go turn off that radar marker. It looks a little different with the starry sky up there, doesn't it? Still kind of cool. All right, we'll deactivate that. And the other thing I want to do here, where is... Okay, the rest of it will kick off from here. All right, so on the radar marker, new logic connection. This is the radar marker for the kiln door, the townsperson door. So when that radar marker is deactivated, what we want to do is turn this radar marker back on to bring the player back over to auto. And the other thing we're going to do is when this radar marker is deactivated, we'll come turn on the second dynamic trigger here. We'll turn that on. Okay? All right. And then on this dynamic trigger, when the player comes back to auto, and they enter the radius around there that this dynamic trigger sets up, at this point we're going to kick off the battle here. So on this dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll turn off the radar marker again for auto. And on that radar marker, a new logic connection when that's deactivated. Turn around and deactivate this trigger area, this dynamic trigger, so we only do this once. On the dynamic trigger, a new logic connection when entered by player any. We will generate the wave. And we're going to have auto say something as well. So a new logic connection on the dynamic trigger when entered by player any. Come over to our text displayer, and this time under the farewell category, he's going to say goodbye. He's got what he needs from you. He has Eve, he has the plant, and you're expendable. Okay, so those are the things that we needed to do on this dynamic trigger. And at this point, the player will battle the enemies, and once the battle is over, stage 1 is done, and we kick off stage 2, which is to go rescue Eve and the plant. All right, so on the enemy wave generator here, we're going to set up stage 2. So, new logic connection when the wave is defeated. First thing we will do is we're going to come over to we'll do the escape pod first. So we're going to come over to the Shamrock collectible, and we're going to reset it, which will make it visible as if the player hadn't picked it up. And we'll turn on the radar marker for that as well, so we'll do that next. So on the enemy wave generator, new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, go turn on that radar marker. And that'll tell the player there's something to do over here in the escape pod room. Here we go. Activate. Now we're not going to put the enemies in here yet, so we don't need to do that. But we do need to set up the radar marker and everything for the repair ward. So, back to the enemy wave generator. New logic connection. When the wave's defeated, we'll come over to the friendly wave generator over here for Eve, the one in the repair ward, because we need to regenerate her now because we've already deleted her. We've deleted the one from the hangar. So this will be a new one. And we will generate that wave. That will put Eve in the repair ward at that locator position. And the way we've configured the properties there, she'll be standing still in that little alcove. And so that the player knows she's there, we need to turn on her radar marker. So on the enemy wave generator here, new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, we'll go turn on that radar marker. And I tried to set up the main quest here to follow the storyline as closely as I could without being able to go up to the bridge, or we don't have the trash compactor. We're not going to be able to fly out in space with the fire extinguisher. Some of the things that they did in the movie. So we can't follow the movie exactly, but I think this kind of somewhat closely follows the plot as best we can. All right, and then on the friendly or the enemy wave generator here, when that wave is defeated, we want to turn on the dynamic trigger here for Eve, so we know when the player finds her. Turn that on. And the last thing we want to do is turn on the trigger area here at the escalator. So we're going to wait and generate the enemies until we know the player is heading in that direction, just in case the player decides to do a little exploring or something out here before they go down there to do stage 2 of the main quest. We'll wait until they get a little closer to generate those enemies. So the last thing this enemy wave generator will do excuse me, is a new logic connection. When the wave is defeated, we'll go turn on that trigger area. I apologize for all the throat clearing. This is one of the times of the year where my asthma gets the better of me. So, yeah, we'll activate that. Okay. So at this point, we're done with all the stage 1 controls. Okay, when they enter this trigger area, we're going to do a new logic connection when entered by player any. First thing we will do is generate the enemies over at the escape pod. We'll generate that wave, And we'll also generate the wave over at the repair ward. New logic connection when entered by player any. We'll generate these enemies. It takes a little bit of time, at least on my Wii U, to generate the enemies. So by the time they come down the escalator and they start coming through the corridors, those enemies should be in place. Okay, and we only want to do this once, so on this enemy wave generator over here, you can use this one or the other one, doesn't matter, but we'll do a new logic connection. When the first unit is generated, we'll come back here and deactivate this trigger area. Okay. All right, so then the player will come to one of these two places. Let's do the repair word first. And I'm just double checking my notes here. There is something I missed earlier. And that is when they come through this trigger area and we start having Wall-E follow the player, we're going to go ahead and disable that trigger area. So on the friendly wave generator for Wall-E, come down to generated friend options on follow. Once Wall-E is following, come down here to this first trigger area, the one we just set up inside that doorway, and deactivate it. I missed that earlier, and I just noticed that on the diagram. So, and I'm glancing just to make sure I didn't miss anything else. Don't think I did. Okay. So over at the repair ward then, when the player comes over and enters the range around Eve that this dynamic trigger sets up, then they've completed their mission over here. And so on the dynamic trigger here, we'll do a new logic connection. When entered by player any, we're going to have this do several things. First, we'll turn off the radar marker, so we don't need that now. They found Eve. Second thing is a new logic connection when entered by player any. We're going to come over to our friendly wave generator, and we're going to have Eve start following the player around just like Wall-E is. On our radar marker here, when this is deactivated, we'll turn around and deactivate that dynamic trigger because we only want to do this once. And the other thing we're going to do is a new logic connection when entered by player any on that dynamic trigger. We want to input into our logic AND, because there's two things the player needs to do to finish stage 2. That's one of them, is rescuing Eve. Okay? And that's it for the logic over here at the repair ward. That's pretty simple. Now the logic over here at the escape pod is even simpler. We just need to know when they pick up that collectible. So on the collectible tracker, go into the properties. We're going to set the collectible type to be the Shamrock. I forgot to set this ahead of time. And we're going to leave this off because I'm using this other radar marker instead. I wanted something that made it a little bit clearer that that collectible is part of the main quest. So that's why we have the arrow on top of it. So when they pick up the collectible, that'll invoke the collectible tracker. So on here, we'll do a new logic connection. When the collectible is collected by any player or team or whatever, at this point we can turn off the radar marker. On the collectible tracker, new logic connection. When the collectible is collected by any, we will input into the logic AND. That's the second thing they have to do to finish stage 2 of the main quest, is input into that. Okay? And that's stage 2. Now stage 3 is pretty straightforward. It's just a series of battles, and that culminates in unlocking the button casing. So on the level AND, or the logic AND, this is going to kick off stage 3. And it's going to do that with a new logic connection. When complete, it's going to generate the wave here at the bottom of the escalator, and it's going to generate the wave at the top of the escalator. So when that logic AND is complete, we'll kick off this one up here as well. Okay? And then we also want to turn on the dynamic trigger, or the trigger area in the gallery. So when that's complete, we'll activate this trigger area. Okay. And the player can choose to battle those robots or just run past them. And if they run past them, or even if they battle and defeat them, at some point they're going to enter this trigger area on their way to the resort area. And so what we'll do on here is a new logic connection when entered. Whoops, not by any. Cancel. New logic connection when entered by player. Any. We'll defeat whatever enemies are left behind, so they're not taking up memory back here. And a new logic connection when entered by player any. We'll defeat the enemies back here. And then we'll also generate the enemies up, the first wave of enemies up here at the resort area. So we'll do a new logic connection when entered by player any. And we're doing it back here so that the enemy generation has time to kick in before the player gets here. And we're going to turn on the enemies over here at the tower. We'll generate that wave. And we only want to do this once. Again, so on this enemy wave generator, when the first unit is generated, come back over here to this trigger area and deactivate it. Okay? Alright. And then the player battles these enemies, and when they defeat them, we'll kick off the second wave of enemies down here on the floor that are guarding the button casing. So a new logic connection. Excuse me. When the wave is defeated, we'll generate this wave, and this helps bring the player down here to where the button casing is. You can see right now it's closed. And so on this enemy wave generator, when this wave is defeated, then we want to unlock the button casing and activate that. And if you don't have the button casing, you're using a button and a logic gate. So what you would do instead is have, when the wave is defeated here, open the logic gate, okay? And then you're going to connect a logic signal for when the button is pressed. You'll try to input into that logic gate at that point. Okay, and then the button casing will wrap up the main quest. So on here it'll be a new logic connection when pressed, and again, if you're using the button and the logic gate, you're not kicking off the button at this point, you're kicking off from the logic gate. So everything I'm doing for output on this button, you're going to be doing from, or when I'm doing when this button is pressed, you're going to be doing on output from the logic gate. But for this, when the button is pressed, we're going to come over to our action enforcer and have all the players celebrate. And we're going to do our end of mission sound. So on the sound effect generator, under the musical category, we'll do fanfare. The other thing we can do is when this is pressed or on output from that logic gate, if you're using the other, at this point Eve and Wall-E don't need to follow you around anymore. So we'll come over to each of those friendly wave generators and turn off that follow behavior. And this is optional. If you'd rather have them follow you around, that's fine. But if you don't, you'll just come down here and do stop following on that friendly wave generator for Wall-E. And the same connection for the other friendly wave generator for Eve, the one from the repair ward. So a new logic connection when pressed, or on output from the logic gate if you don't have the button casing. Then we'll come over here to our friendly wave generator for Eve. Under generated friend options, stop following. Okay, and that is it for the main quest and the logic you need for that. Okay, so at this point, before the video started, I had already taken Wall-E out and Eve out, but when I pushed the button over there, that put them back in. So what you can do at this point is you would push this button to take them out. Okay, so now they're not in the hangar bay. You would go and save your toy box, and then go push the button for the level starter and put yourself down in the hangar bay. So go into Spark mode, drop yourself down in the hangar on that ledge, and then play through the mission and make sure all of the logic works. And if there's a problem, then you probably missed a logic connection somewhere, or you hooked up something wrong. And if that happens, then just exit the toy box without saving and reload it, and then go through and review your connections and compare those with what's on the logic diagram and what's in the video, and see where you went awry. And when you find it, make the fix, and then save your toy box again and replay it again until you got it right. Okay, well that's all for me today. Next time we will implement the tram that carries the player through the gallery to the resort area, and we'll implement the malfunctioning robots in the repair ward and put the ceiling on the interior corridors, and we will be done. And I'm going to do that on Friday this week so that I can wrap up this toy box. That will probably be my last video for the year, except for my Christmas video, because with the holidays coming up, things are going to start getting too busy for me to work on videos, so I want to finish that. Anyway, before you go, leave a comment and let me know what you think of the main quest logic, and if there's anything you might have done differently for the story. Thank you for watching. Take care.